might be able to talk to us about, today with everything going on.
Yeah, no, a lot of good conversations we'll have, reminisce about the good old days when we covered him when he was a player.
Right, we both covered him, and I went and dug up some newspaper clippings of those
tears,
days.
Did tears?
No tears, but it was kind of cool to see that, and I thought, you know what, I wasn't a bad writer.
That was many years ago.
My daughter laughed when I said that.
You're talking. I first got here. That's 32 years ago.
And that's the last time I talked to Doug. Would have been at the end of that season. Although we've been Facebook friends for a while, and I'm not really sure how that happened, but we've been Facebook friends. So, that was kind of one of the, his name popped up on my feed, and that's when I thought, hey, let's get him on the show. So
yeah,
it's funny how that happens, but it's been a while.
I had him on the show about 6-7 months ago, and because I ran into him at the football field. Hey, that's Doug Pfaff, and his son was on the team. So it'll be good to kind of reminisce again. We both covered him at the same time. In the meantime, a lot of crazy stuff continues to happen worldwide with the pandemic.
We took a beating today, Steve.
Let me tell you something. You may not get to see sports this fall.
We took a beating. It started out with the Ivy League announcing that they're not going to have any sports at all. But we got to put that in a little bit of perspective. Football in the Ivy League is kind of like women's softball at Arizona.
Important.
It's important. People go to it, but it doesn't make money for the school.
Yeah.
So there's that. So it's not the type of thing that is going to have a big impact on the FBS schools. I went through the schedule, and only one FBS team, that's Army, has a game against an Ivy League school. So that's the only one that's, from a scheduling standpoint, that's affected.
It's a domino, but not a strong enough domino to knock other dominoes down.
I think it's one of those things where the domino kind of fell to the side, right? Everybody saw it fall and held their breath, and the rest of it hasn't gone yet. I don't think that's going to have a major impact from that. Now, where it could have an impact is other teams sort of at their level.
Yeah.
Sort of the mid-major or FCS schools that do play, FBS schools. I could see it having an impact on them, but it's not going to make an SEC school go, ooh, the Ivy League's not playing, neither are we.
Let's say these are the smart schools. Harvard and another smart school today eliminated 11 sports.
Right.
The sports weren't major sports, but they were the smaller sports.
Well, yeah. Well, Stanford is cutting 11 sports, and the thing about that is that Stanford cutting those 11 sports isn't like Arizona cutting those 11 sports,
right?
Because Stanford has made its bones about its athletic program through all the national championships it wins in the quote-unquote Olympic sports.
Plus, they're number one in college athletics overall.
Across the board, and they had the most sports, and so they're cutting 11 sports, and they're all sports that, look, people say, well, it's rowing. I mean, who cares about rowing? Well, you know what? The people on the rowing team care.
Right.
And they care a lot. They have scholarships, and maybe they don't have full scholarships, but, I'll take a partial scholarship
It
to
affects
Stanford.
you if you're affected by it.
Right. If you're an athlete in one of those teams, you're feeling it and you're hurt by this. So there's no way you can sit there and say, that's not a big deal. That is a big deal.
Let me also say that could be a domino.
That one is. That one could be, because now, it's one of those things. Well, Stanford that really, really cares about these sports, if they're cutting sports, what are we going to do?
Right. Well, it eliminated the sports, and then the people involved with the coaches, the support staff.
Right.
It's another trickle down thing.
Right. It's scholarships, it's students, and it's jobs.
Right.
And that's the unfortunate part of all of that. So could that trigger some other things? I think that's more likely to trigger something than the Ivy League.
At the end of the day, we're all going to be living together.
It's just, I don't know. Today, we took a beating. Ohio
State, right?
They announced that they're pausing their voluntary workouts, including football.
North Carolina did the same thing.
North Carolina did the same thing. Ohio State did not release how many student athletes have the COVID, but it was enough for them to pause their workouts. Now, we keep seeing reports of other schools that are testing, and they're only getting, a very small percentage and that kind of thing. And it's enough that they can handle it, but it's happening, and people are trying, and this is one way that people are dealing with it. And what I read on the Ohio State thing is they're going to pause for like a week, go get these students that got positive tests, test them again, and see maybe in a week they, kind of resume things. But the fact that it happens to where the point that you got to stop because enough people got it all at once, you got to stop the spread, and that's the idea behind all of this.
And it's happening here, so it's the NBA is talking about it as well. If they continue to get more and more tests that are negative, there may not be a season.
Steve, I think we're hanging on by a thread right now on some of this stuff.
No question.
I think baseball and Major League Baseball and the NBA, as much as they want to make it happen and all the resources they have to make it happen, I do believe it's kind of all hanging by a thread. Do I think it can still happen? Sure. But I do believe it's hanging by a thread. Another thing I saw today, one of a coach from the Big Ten said that they're not playing any non-conference games. Now, it's not a final decision. Nobody's announced that. But a coach anonymously told a reporter that non-conference games are off the table.
That makes the most sense. We've talked about it a lot here in the last month or so because it makes the most sense. Because why do it?
Right. Why? Exactly. Why? I mean, you're not gonna get a bunch of people at the game. You're gonna pay for somebody to come here. You're gonna endanger them.
Skeptical about right.
The conference games are important enough. Why risk being able to play those in order to play Portland State? Right. So the other piece of that Big Ten item was that the coach, I don't know if it was a coach or an athletic director, but somebody like that also said that what the Big Ten is talking about is playing 10 conference games, and that's it.
You know what? Do you think that this is going to shape the future of what we see down the road? But you know what I'm saying? This kind of sets a precedent?
It's going to set the precedent from the standpoint that teams are going to be, if they're going to play non-conference games, they're going to play non-conference games against somebody in the region or whatever, so that if they have to cancel the game or something like that, or if there are things like that, there has to be continued testing, next season or the season after, that it can be handled in a way. Arizona, I don't see Arizona is going to play, Florida anymore. Now, we know those games are scheduled into the future to play Mississippi State and LSU and Nebraska,
Alabama
and all that stuff. Those are the games that I see going away, and teams are just going to, maybe you back it down to an 11-game season again, or even a 10-game season.
Right.
I mean, it was a 10-game season in our lifetime. We were little, but they played a 10-game season in our lifetime.
Back to the WEC days. Hello, New Mexico. Hello, Colorado State, San Diego State, all those teams that are close by. Hey, let's take a quick break. Get a hold of Doug Pfaff and talk to him about the good old days, talk about the current situation as a coach, former player, and all that. Thanks.
Trusted local news and talk all day, every day. 1030 The Voice.
There's a place in our house.
For 70 years, Benjamin Supply has been keeping Tucson flowing. Hygiene is our business. We help you achieve extreme clean. Minimize germ spreading with a hands-free sensor faucet. Forget the paper panic with a washlet seat. And speaking of waterworks, a big thanks to plumbers for their essential efforts during this health crisis. Shop our downtown showroom by appointment. Call us at 777-7000 or see all the products online at benjaminsupply.com.
Thanks to Benjamin Plumbing Supply.
It's those guys from Tucson Appliance Company, the best appliance company in Tucson.
For the month of July, we're going to donate 2% of our sales to a local charity from in-stock purchases.
Come shop at our store and work with our amazing sales team.
Dustin, David, Ryan, Alex, me, and Peter.
You can choose from a list of local charities for us to donate to.
The only way we can give back is if you shop local. Only at Tucson Appliance, where our low price is your priority.
These days, most families are concerned with having the right insurance coverage. Protecting your family, home, auto, and other valuable possessions can be challenging and sometimes expensive. Crest Insurance gives you flexible options and solutions while saving you money. Insurance is not one size fits all, and at Crest, we find the coverage that's best for you and your family. Visit us online at www.crestins.com or call us toll free at 888-881-5765.
1030 The Voice. News from inside the Beltway.
Hi, it's Hugh Hewitt on the next Hugh Hewitt Show. I won't be there. Colonel Kurt Schlichter will be sitting in for me. He's got a new book, the 21 biggest lies about Donald Trump and you. He may mention that a time or two as he sits in for me on the next Hugh Hewitt Show.
Weekday mornings from 10 to noon on 1030 The Voice. Trusted local news and talk.
Trusted local news and talk. All day, every day. 1030 The Voice.
Hey, welcome back to Eye on the Ball here on 1030 The Voice. I'm Steve Rivera, alongside co-host Jay Gonzales. And now on the phone, former U of A kicker Doug Pfaff. Doug, how are you in the 118-degree weather?
Oh, Steve and Jay, I'm doing great, but you're right. This weather is getting a little bit extreme for us.
You've been in Dallas, you've been in Phoenix. Dallas is crazy too. Which is better, weather-wise?
You know, it's different because I was just in Dallas last weekend. My youngest son, Blake, who just graduated from U of A, moved back to Dallas. And I will tell you, being away from the humidity for 2 years, it hit me. I'm like, okay, I can't remember it being this humid. But so I think I'd lean more towards the Arizona dry heat just because you know it's hot, but as long as you aren't standing out in the sun, you're not going to sweat. Where in Dallas, it doesn't matter. Just, if you're outside, you're going to sweat because of the humidity.
Yeah, but you're still up in Sun Devil country. So if you're going to be, you deserve to be hotter if you're going to hang out up there. Is what I'm thinking.
Jay, when I moved out here 2 years ago from Dallas, I moved actually into Tempe, and I went to a restaurant, and they called it Sun Devil Fries. And I went up and I said, hey, can I get some Wildcat fries? The lady at the register looked at me, and I'm like, yeah, Wildcat fries. She's like, I'm sorry, sir, we don't make those. I'm like, well, I'm not eating the other fries that you have. I need to have Wildcat fries. And she had that puzzled look. So, yeah, I do see a lot of maroon and gold up here, but I'm doing everything I can to kind of put some red and blue up in Tempe.
That's a good team move because the next time you order fries, who knows what's going to be in those fries?
Exactly.
Yeah, good thing it wasn't the chef that I was talking to.
Right. How you doing? I didn't realize it. Are you the head coach in high school?
No. Dan Hines is the head coach at Desert Vista, and he's been there, I think he's been there a little over 20 years at Desert Vista. So I was the special teams coordinator last year, and just had a blast. I've always loved coaching, just kind of, once I started my professional career, coaching was just, kind of related to just my own kids. But now that my kids are out of the house, I had a couple opportunities the last couple of years when I moved back to coach at two different schools. The first one was actually South Point High School. We won the championship, and that's a school where Reggie McGill's brother is is basically the principal at that school. So it was kind of a neat connection, getting quasi connected to the McGill family. But then last year, coached special teams at Desert Vista. We had a really good run, made it to the state semis in 6A. Unfortunately, got beat by 3 points to Liberty, who eventually won the state championship in 6A. But so we didn't quite achieve all of our goals, but at least we had a pretty good run at it last year.
Well, first of all, the fact that you're at a high school that has a special teams coordinator is kind of amazing to me because, when we played, there were like three coaches, right? A defensive coach, an offensive coach, and a head coach. So, but let's start there. Kind of, in terms of what you're seeing, what you're hearing. You're in 6A football. I mean, what's going on as far as COVID, and what do you think is going to happen?
It's still a moving target every day, Steve and Jay. In early June, AIA allowed us to start doing some conditioning practices where we could only be in groups of like 10 kids per one coach, and you could not intermingle those groups at all. There was no using footballs, blocking pads, nothing. It was just strictly agility. And we got about a little over 2 weeks into that before this latest, kind of resurgence of COVID-19 came back. And so they shut it down for about 30 days. So, nobody knows right now. My gut tells me, and again, this is strictly my gut, I don't see how the high school football season's going to start on time. I think, best case scenario, it maybe gets delayed a couple weeks. I sure hope it doesn't get postponed till maybe springtime, but the longer this goes, guys, I think the odds of it getting postponed more than just a couple weeks keeps increasing. And again, that's just Doug Pfaff's gut. That's not information that I'm being given by any school district or anything like that. But I'm concerned because, again, even if we can start practicing again, the time it takes to ramp up. I mean, there's been no football drills for 5 months, and usually there's been practices, 7-on-7 tournaments, a lot more, normal, what we think of typical football practices would have at least been going on for the past few months. And it's been, these kids have almost been on a 5-month vacation.
Your gut is the same as Jay's gut. My gut, I think.
Well, not literally.
No,
figuratively.
No, he's in shape.
I've seen pictures of you on Facebook. Okay. First of all, let me just say how upset I was that when I'm trying to find a picture of you for our graphic today, I couldn't find one that I could tell if it was a college shot or a current shot. It really pisses me off that you look the way you look. Because I've aged a lot.
You're too nice. You're too nice. Well, obviously, you don't sound like my wife because she tells me that I definitely have aged. So.
Well, that's what wives do.
That's true. She definitely keeps us in check, don't they?
Yeah. So let's go. I think your feeling is the same feeling we've had. You're a coach now, and your son was a former player here at U of A. It's just as a parent, there's some tough times for your kids to say, should you play?
You're right. I mean, the unknown of the COVID-19 and is nobody knows, and I don't see how we could play sports, especially football, and not just see a cycle of kids continuing to test positive throughout the course of a season. And so what happens to any team, regardless of the level, whether it's Pee Wee, high school, college, or pro? What happens to a team when they have 12 kids or 18 kids test positive? I mean, do they still have to play the game with half a team or a third of the team not able to play? Do those players play and then infect the other teams and other players? And I mean, it's just, there's so many unknowns that this season is going to be one to remember, because I don't know if anybody has a clue on how it could probably be executed without just having turns every other day based on just what we have to go through, not only as a human being, but then, you parlay that with being an athlete. It's just, it's difficult. And, I pray that it works out and that we, get a vaccine and get a better grip of this COVID virus. But, I don't see that happening in the next couple months.
Doug, imagine if your son had another year at Arizona. Let's say he's looking at, senior year coming up. Where would you be as a parent if if he's a dad, Dad, I've got to decide if I'm going to go to voluntary workouts and stuff like that. Where would you sit as a parent on that one?
It's a good question. I think the schools have to really ramp up the testing, because we've seen that it doesn't take much to all of a sudden have a huge outbreak. And again, even if you test every day, the athletes, that doesn't mean that somebody might not have had COVID-19, but just didn't show symptoms for a few days. And so during that time period, how many people did they maybe contaminate? So I would definitely be hesitant. The athlete in me always says, well, yeah, we're immune because of our physical condition, but now the parent in me is like, you got to think twice, because even if my kid survives COVID-19, what about the coaches? What about the athletic staff? What about all those other people that they come in contact with that, of course, are a little bit more in our age? They're not 21 years old. They're a little older, and they're ability to, recover is not as high as somebody that's 21 years old.
Well, I just kind of lost my question here, but go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, because put yourself now in the shoes of an athlete yourself.
And that's what it was. Yes.
You were a college athlete, and now you know how important it was to you and how much a part of your life being a college football player was. If you're sitting here and you're the athlete now, where do you? Are you the guy that said, well, I'm not going to get it. I'm in good shape. I'm going.
Let's also remember he's 21 years old, 22.
Right, yeah. What are you thinking?
Yeah, and that's the thing. At that age, guys, unfortunately, you just think, hey, I'm going to play because this is the sport I love. This is the school or the team that I want to represent. And you just think that your likelihood of getting it is so minimal that you're going to take that risk, because that excitement of being able to play in front of thousands of people is worth it. Now, what happens if you play that game in front of nobody? I don't know. Maybe that would change, because we play the game of football or any sport because you love the game, but playing it in front of 60,000, 80,000 people, 45,000 people, it's a whole different experience than playing it in front of 300. And it would really, I'd love to say the 21-year-old of me would be mature enough to make the right decision, but my gut would tell me I'd probably still lean towards playing the game.
We got about a minute left. You're going to stay with us for the next segment. We're going to talk about the good old days when you played and maybe bring a tear to our eye. But let me ask you real quick, what's the game that you thought, no. How did the applause, you got applause a lot in your college days, but it all ended. How did that feel?
It depends. For me, I never envisioned myself as, let's say, making a career out of being an athlete. I was blessed to get an education and play at a high level. And by the time I played as a senior, then maybe I did have a perspective of maybe playing, in the NFL. But I think since I wasn't banking my whole future on it, when it ended, I knew it was just time for the next chapter of my life. And so I left with no regrets, Steve.
Yeah, perfect. Good answer.
Yeah, great answer.
Let's take a quick break here, come back and talk about some of those game winners, all the fun you had at U of A during your time in the late 80s, I think it was. 10:30 The Voice.
Yep.
CBS News at the top and bottom of every hour. 10:30 The Voice, Tucson's trusted local news and talk.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks pushed ahead by 0.7 to about 1.5% across the averages, powered by tech shares. After yesterday's pause, the Dow rose 177, the Nasdaq 149. That was enough for another record close at 10,493, and the S&P hit a one-month high on a gain of 25. Money managers say investors focused on tech because they are companies that investors believe will support a work-from-home environment. J.P. Morgan Chase is fine with that. It's pulled back plans to return workers to the bank's biggest U.S. office building in Columbus, Ohio, because coronavirus cases in Ohio jumped. The plans to return to work are on hold indefinitely. T-Mobile is looking at bringing broadband to rural areas. It's launching a pilot program in 3 counties in western Michigan. For $50 a month, customers there can sign up for fast internet service that would let a family stream at least 5 shows at once. Joan Doniger, Bloomberg Radio.
CBS News Update. Atlanta's mayor has signed an executive order mandating masks in Georgia's largest city, defying Governor Brian Kemp's voluntary decision. New Jersey's governor is making them mandatory when social distancing is not possible. This woman on the beach along the Jersey shore.
It's a simple thing to do, and it's really not that bad. It's uncomfortable, but if that's the least we can do, it's not that hard.
CBS's David Begnaud says hospitals in some places are at capacity.
Arizona has fewer than 150 ICU beds left in the entire state. In California, at least 100 people have died from the virus for the 3rd day in the past week.
Broward County, Florida has issued an emergency order limiting how many people can be in vacation rentals at one time with no guests allowed. Mayor Dale Holness.
We're going to require that each restaurant has no more than 6 people at a table and that they close for in-dine-in at 10 p.m. in the night.
CBS News Update, I'm Matt Piper.
Camille Rivas Rutherford with Coldwell Banker Realty has been one of the top producing real estate agents in Tucson, Oro Valley, Marana, and Vail for more than 20 years. Let her help you find your dream home in southern Arizona. Her passion and enthusiasm for real estate has helped her become one of the most respected and trusted realtors in the area. And she was recently named a recipient of Coldwell Banker's 2019 International President's Circle Award. Camille's approach to sales and marketing and selling or buying a home is second to none. Give her a call at 520-250-5192.
Time to update those old kitchen cabinets? Call the Window Depot today. The Window Depot is not only the #1 warehouse for windows and doors, we now have a great selection of kitchen and bath cabinets at Tucson's best prices. The Window Depot is Tucson's top spot for granite and quartz countertops to finish the new kitchen or the replacement of that old worn-out Formica. So call us today at 290-8545 or 622-6430. The Window Depot, windows, doors, granite, and new kitchens.
It's your town. Get up and get involved.
Hey, it's Chris from Wake Up Tucson. We'll see you for the Thursday show. Dan Gibson from Visit Tucson, Congressman David Schweikert, Brian Larson talking about the 60-game MLB season, and then we have Bob Thorpe, Northern Arizona legislator who's not too thrilled with Doug Ducey and how he handles coronavirus. Wake up, Tucson.
Weekday mornings, 6 to 9 on 1030 The Voice. Trusted local news and talk.
Trusted local news and talk. 1030 The Voice.
Hey, welcome back to Eye on the Ball here on 1030 The Voice. I'm Steve Rivera alongside Jay Gonzales. And on the phone we have former U of A football player Doug Pfaff. So just real quick before we get Jay with a quick question. How many game winners did you have?
I had 4. So I was blessed. I played just 2 years at U of A. I came as a junior college transfer. So my junior year, kicked the game winner against Washington, which was the first year we had ever beaten the University of Washington. And then my senior year, had a game winner against Oklahoma. The following week, a game winner against Washington again. And then a couple weeks later, beat Washington State with a game winner in the last minute as well.
You know, Doug, I mean, I shouldn't say people, my family doesn't understand how I've got such a dead-eye memory for Arizona football on a lot of stuff when I can't even remember my kids' names some days. But, you know, I mean, and the first Washington game your junior year, that one sticks out in my mind because we were at Washington. You know, Steve and I were just talking about how we were standing on the sidelines. It was freezing rain. It was cold as hell. It was windy. And I remember that like yesterday. And I remember the Oklahoma game, of course, because that's, you know, one of the big games in, you know, Arizona history. I had zero recollection of those other two. I have zero recollection that you kicked a game winner in the last minute the very next week against Washington again. I just didn't remember that at all.
You know, it's funny. Don James, the great coach at University of Washington, the following year after I had left, I remember reading a quote as they were getting ready to play U of A again, and he goes, "Well, all I know is Doug Pfaff's not going to kick a game winner against us this year because he graduated." And
I think partly because of you, I think they took it out on Arizona. Didn't they beat them like 52 to nothing or 54 to nothing the next year? I think you're probably to blame for some of that.
They did, but I think we extracted a little revenge on them a couple of years later when we beat them when they were ranked #1, and that was at Tucson. So I was watching that game in Hermosa Beach, California, and jumping up and down when they upset Washington, who was #1 in the country at that time.
Everyone has this perception about kickers. You know, they're not really football players. You know, they just come on and kick a field goal every now and again.
Doug, I never thought that, okay, just so you know.
But they do, because they're somewhere on the other side of the field or something. They're kicking. How much pressure was there to kick those game winners? Because you knew if you missed, it wasn't going to be pretty.
You know what, guys? The perception of kickers obviously has been around a long time, and hopefully that's changing over the past few decades. But, you're right. Kickers, if you produce, your teammates love you, and you feel very much a part of the team. And I was blessed to be able to have some great opportunities and contribute to the outcomes of Arizona's victories. But on the same note, I've seen where kickers have not performed and have cost the team victories. And you're absolutely right. It's hard to walk into a locker room knowing that, the final play was up to you and you let everybody down. And so it's a lot of pressure. That's why you see so many kickers, even in the NFL, that, can have a great 4, 5, 6 years. And then next thing you know, they're out of the league. I've always said kicking's 90% mental and 10% physical. And once you lose that mental edge, it doesn't matter how good of a leg you have. If you're not kicking it through the uprights and getting 3 points, you're not going to be on the team much longer.
How often do some of these games, come to mind when you're, just going about your daily business or whatever? Or maybe you're in a situation where you think, this isn't pressure. This is no big deal. I had a kick to win the game against Oklahoma.
Well, it definitely helps you because you're right. I mean, as I moved into my professional career, doing a presentation to close a deal or talking to a group of people, I mean, it's not pressure because you're right. You've had 75,000 people either screaming at you to miss, or you've had 60,000, 70,000 people silent, waiting for you to hopefully, win the game for them. And so that pressure does help you in a lot of different after athletic experiences, and just makes it easier to kind of go through some of those.
You must have, well, I'm sure your college days were a charmed life and all that, but I'm sure you kept close with U of A too. About 5-6 years ago, Casey Scowen had one of those moments. Big game against USC, I think, one of those games, and he hit it. They called the timeout. It didn't count. And then he missed it.
And then he missed it.
Death threats and things like that. I'm sure that didn't happen to you, but you could probably sympathize with just the situation.
You can, and that's that's the only thing that I see in athletics that is so difficult is you got so many people that are fans, and they forget that. Whether it's at high school and these kids are 16, 17, 18 years old, or in college and they're, again, 18 to 22 years old, I mean, they're so young, and to take it to that extreme is just incomprehensible. I mean, nobody goes out there to try to not produce, but sometimes you succeed, sometimes you fail. But for somebody to try to give death threats to an athlete just because they didn't perform on that one play, it's inexcusable. And it's sad because, again, nobody feels worse than that athlete. Trust me. I mean, you got to face your coaches, your teammates, your students, and your fans on a daily basis. And it's not easy. And that's why, mentally I said it's like 90% of the battle because, if you do make a mistake, you can't let that mistake continue on to your next opportunity. You got to put it behind you and focus and get that next one, because if you let it compound, then pretty soon you're in a hole and you can't dig yourself out of it.
All right, so take us back to the Oklahoma game. I'd really like to hear, what's going through your mind. Your team gets the ball. There's I think there was 5 minutes and change left, so there's still a lot of time in a game when nobody could move the ball. Did you think, there were a couple of possessions left in the game? You guys end up taking the ball and just keeping it the whole rest of the game. Are you thinking, okay, I'm gonna have to make a kick, or I'm hoping they're gonna score a touchdown? Where's your mind during that whole period of time? And probably was a good, 15, 20 minutes of real time that you guys had the ball before you went in to make that kick.
It was. We had a great drive. Of course, Arizona offense back then was a ground and pound type of an offense. And so as we moved the chains, it was usually 3 plays and we picked up 12 yards. And so we just methodically moved down. And I go into, every game with the mindset that it's going to come down to the last second. And I'm going to have to kick a field goal to win the game. That was just the way I prepared because, again, if I didn't prepare for success, I was going to fail. And so I always envisioned these opportunities coming and always practiced them during the week. I'd kick field goals acting like, okay, 46-yard field goal, 2 seconds left. I got to hit this. We're down by 2 points. And so I would do those in practice. So when it hopefully did come to, fruition on a Saturday during game day, I had done it 20, 30, 50 times already. And so I just felt a lot more comfortable when it did happen.
It's funny because that's what I remember the most from that game. After the game, and Dick told me talking about if you vision it, it'll be that way. If you got to vision it, you got to vision it. And I think you agreed with that at the time. And you can always say that, when you practice it and there's nobody in the stands, that's different than 55,000 people in the stands saying you better make it.
It's true, but it's so funny, guys, when you really get locked in mentally. I mean, like, go back the year before to the game in Washington. We used to huddle away from the line of scrimmage, for field goals. And so I was putting my tee down because my junior year we kicked with the tee. I'm putting the tee down, and I'm waiting for my holder to come. I'm like, where the heck is he? Man, they're taking forever. And because my ritual was I wasn't going to move till he got there. Well, I didn't even know Washington called a timeout. And our whole field goal team had already walked over to the sidelines, and I'm still waiting there. Finally, I look, and Coach told me, he's like, get over here. And so, like you said, he goes, gosh, it's cold. Let's kick this thing and get the heck out of here. And so, just having the visualization, I think, is huge, especially for, any athlete. But, I got a little notoriety my senior year. I used to go to the stadium the night before a game, and in the dark with my holder and snapper without a football, we would visualize and go through the motions of about 30 field goals all across the field. So, we just imagined a perfect snap, a perfect hold, and a perfect kick. And I think it helped us because come game time, it was just like we were doing that in the dark with nobody else there. We blocked everybody out. We didn't hear anything.
How many times have you seen the clip of that? Because if I hear it right, when you hit the kick, I think Bruce Larson, who was the analyst guy, said missed it because he thought it was going to be short. And I think didn't at the end of the season you say you actually had a bit of a leg injury or something, and that I thought you said that was as far as you were going to kick that one.
It was funny. I actually hurt my leg before the season started in camp, and it just progressively got worse every week. I pulled my groin, and as a kicker, if you got to pull groin, it's kind of hard to kick a ball. But when I did pregame, my leg was always fresh and I could kick, and I'm like, oh, I feel great. But I didn't understand until about week 6 that, 3 hours into, the game, my strength had diminished. And so what happened in that kick, it was 40 yards, and as soon as I kicked it, I've heard that clip, and yes, he does say, missed it. But it crossed that crossbar, and so,
I do. Weren't you under the?
No, I was sitting to the side.
I was under it.
It was leaking oil. I mean, it was leaking oil early.
And it sounded like when you hit a ball, thump, like you had that thump into it.
And I actually, when you hit it, I put my hands on my knees because I thought it was going to be short. And and it made it, and the place went crazy, and it was a lot of fun. And I'll tell you, it was a much easier story to write on deadline for me.
Right. Hey, lastly, because Coach Tommy just passed away just a little over a year ago, how was it playing for him?
We had a great relationship, and it didn't start that way, guys. I was recruited by Larry Smith. When I came to camp, I did not get a very good first impression with Coach Tomey. So we had our challenges for half of my tenure at U of A. But between just my hard work and luck and given an opportunity and taking advantage of that opportunity, by the time I left U of A, he and I had a respect for each other that you would have never thought would have developed based on probably my first 18 months at that university. Since I graduated, we had become very good friends, kept in contact with them. and he tells stories about me to every team that he coaches after he left U of A, and even some of the teams at U of A after I left, because of just kind of the trials and tribulations that I went through, and so I appreciate Coach Tomey. He was a great man. He told you exactly what he felt, regardless if you wanted to hear it or not. But he wasn't somebody that kind of was two-faced. He was the same man, 24/7, 365. I have a lot of love and a lot of respect for him. Still friends with his son Richie. See him maybe about once a year. But I miss Coach Tomey. He was a heck of a man. I wish U of A football was like it was back in the day. I mean, I miss knowing that the Wildcats are going to play the way that we used to play, and that needs to change pretty quick.
Yeah,
great stuff.
Yeah,
great stuff, Doug. We appreciate you being here on the show with us, and lots of great memories. We love talking about that stuff here.
And Jay didn't cry.
I didn't. I got a little. Okay, I got a little tear. I'm a little one right here, but because of what you said about Dick, because he became a really good friend of mine as well. Right. It's great stuff. So appreciate you doing that.
Be well, Doug.
Thanks.
Stay safe.
Hey, you too. You guys stay healthy, and I'm happy to be on anytime you need me.
Thanks a bunch.
Thank you. Hey, let's take a quick break here. Our last one here on 1030 The Voice.
Your source for trusted local news and talk. 1030 The Voice.
There's a place in our house.
For 70 years, Benjamin Supply has been keeping Tucson flowing. Hygiene is our business. We help you achieve extreme clean. Minimize germ spreading with a hands-free sensor faucet. Forget the paper panic with a washlet seat. And speaking of waterworks, a big thanks to plumbers for their essential efforts during this health crisis. Shop our downtown showroom by appointment. Call us at 777-7000 or see all the products online at benjaminsupply.com.
Thanks to Benjamin Plumbing Supply.
Go local. Make the switch. At Hughes Federal Credit Union, we offer customized solutions and get you what you need faster. Like our quick and easy credit cards and auto loans. All done online from start to finish. Save time using mobile banking, bill pay, mobile deposit, and mobile pay with just a few clicks. Live large, accessing 30,000 plus surcharge-free ATMs and free debit card choices. Make the switch to Hughes today. Visit hughesfcu.org/switch. Certain restrictions apply. Insured by NCUA.
With the reopening of the economy, it's back to business for Tucson, and there's never been a better time to advertise. You've probably been considering it for a while, but there's a lot of questions. At 1030 The Voice, we can help you every step of the way, from creating an effective and affordable advertising schedule to crafting your message to creating the perfect commercial with our Addy Award-winning production department. Call General Manager Patty Ruiz at 791-7208 and let 1030 The Voice get to work for you.
This is The Voice, 1030, Tucson's trusted news and talk.
Hey, welcome back to Eye on the Ball here on 1030 The Voice. I'm Steve Rivera alongside Jay Gonzales. That was fun.
That was very fun.
Do you feel old?
Yes. Because, I feel like it wasn't that long ago that, I was covering him and stuff like that, and it was
32 years ago.
30 years ago.
Yeah.
30 plus years ago. And a lot's happened, and I'm not joking, okay? His pictures, he looks as young as he looks the same. Because, if you go Google him and look for a photo of him, you see the football card that, they used to make of all the players, and you see his headshot there, and then you see his headshot from his LinkedIn. They're the same guy.
Yeah,
he's the same guy. I hate those guys. I hate those guys. I look at my picture. I going through the clips. I had a column at the time that I was covering football. So there's the the headshot that would run with my column, and I look at that compared to what I look like now. They're not the same guy.
Hey, I put a throwback photo last week, and I was like, "Who is this dude?"
Hey, dude, you look good.
Back then or now?
Back then.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Today you're just kind of scruffy.
Scruffy and about 50 pounds
hey, man,
heavier.
You had the look.
I had the feather.
You did have the look.
Hair.
We all had that dang haircut, though, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
We all had that.
It was keeping it. That's the key. I think you couldn't move your head.
I kept it as long as I could.
Yeah.
I had to get rid of mine. Oh, I'm going to say Well, I know I had it when I was covering sports.
This was 84. My photo was 84. So
Yeah.
you're talking 87?
I'm talking. Yeah, I had that when I was even finished. I think I must have gotten it when I became a serious business person and started working at Tucson Electric.
So the hair changed.
The hair changed at some point there. I went back to partying on the side.
Oh yeah.
You know, I couldn't be the disco king
Those
anymore.
are definitely the good old days for me. thin and okay. Now not so much.
Exactly.
So hey, we found out yesterday there's going to be a lot of news coming out of U of A with the international students.
Right.
There's some wiggle room. They're going to try to accommodate things like that.
Right. Well, the Trump administration announced that if international students aren't able to go to on-campus class, so if the school they go to isn't having on-campus classes and only online classes, then their visas are no longer valid and they have to go back home. We can debate whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but you know, the University of Arizona every college really has a lot of international students, and they're an important part of the college experience, both for the students, for themselves, for the teachers, and those kids bring a lot to our country.
Sure.
So the University of Arizona announced that no matter what, they're gonna have enough on-campus classes that the international students can stay. Now that I don't know how that relates to athletes if they have a different visa than say somebody who's on campus as a student. But let's not forget, I think 6 Arizona basketball players are international players.
That's why it's highlighted.
That's a big deal at Arizona, and at least as it relates to sports. I mean, obviously it's a big deal to those kids and their lives, but you know, from a basketball standpoint for Arizona, that's a big deal, and the other sports.
What, golf?
Right. You know, Adia Barnes has a number of international players on her team.
Track and field.
So you know, if we're going to start kicking those students out, you know, what are we doing to the experience, and why are we doing that?
Well, first they got to get here.
Right. Well, then there's that. They got to get here, and you know, a lot of them aren't here yet.
Right.
Some of them are. I think Ira Lee told us he was working out with one of the international guys in Southern California. So some of them are in the country.
Now you need 5 more. 5 more.
But you know, that's good development on the U of A's part. You know, doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And making sure that these students who are invested in the U of A, some who have probably been here for a while and they're just trying to get their degree, they're going to get to stay.
Well, in the next 3 or 4 weeks, probably less than 3 weeks, we'll know more about students and the life.
Right. You know, well, Arizona is 16 days away from having to decide, you know, but they've said they got to decide by July 24th if they're going to have on-campus classes. Now, they've just said we're going to have enough, so apparently there's going to be some. The question is how many.
Yeah. That in addition to decisions like that, we saw today from Michael Lev about the Schooler brothers.
Right, the Schooler brothers, and you know they're, trying to live the dream of playing football together and
right.
And they're both going to be with their last year of eligibility coming up, and so the question is, you know, if the football season gets moved to the spring, which has become more of a possibility than it was a few weeks ago, what happens to that? You know, if you're a senior, and we've had this discussion a little bit, but you know, in the article by Michael Levin, I've read it's a really good read, and it talks about how these two guys are, and you know, and it talks to his dad and how they're trying to, you know, make the best of it. It's interesting to see, you know, what's in their mind, and it sounded to me, I'm not trying to put words in their mouths, but it sounded to me like if the season goes into the spring and the NFL doesn't really flow with that,
right,
and they feel like they've got the potential of an NFL career, will they play in the spring?
Right. No matter what dreams they have.
Right.
You got to save your career for later.
Right. You know, these guys, look, you know, you're a college football player. It's essentially a 4-year or 5-year job interview. Now, you know, most of them come out and they know they get to the end of it and they say, okay, I'm not getting that job. But, you know, the schoolers, they believe they can. They've got a chance.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they're going to do what's the right thing for them, which that would be my first advice to them. You know, not that I know everything, but my first advice to them would be do what's right for you.
And that's advice that you could take for anything.
For anything, anybody.
Right.
You know, I've always been of the opinion that when Arizona, particularly in basketball fans, get upset that a player leaves early, and I'm like, Why did he come to college? He came to college to get a job.
Mhm.
He can get a job that pays him millions of dollars after his freshman year. Why wouldn't he take that job?
Even the ones that get a job for $250,000 a year.
Right. I mean, if I could leave my college after my freshman year in journalism and get a $250,000 a year job, I'm all over that.
Sure. It depends on who you are and how much you need or whatever.
Right.
But this is not 1962 or whatever year you want to say. This is more about, and they're coming here for a reason.
Right.
They think they can play in the league.
Right.
Whether that's true or not, in other people's minds, that's the case. Look at what we see now. Trier, in and out for 2 years, gone. Raleigh Alkins, who everybody loved and could see he could play, guess what? Not good enough.
Right.
All these guys over the last handful of years.
A bunch of them. Nick Johnson, had a cup of coffee in the league, and
so what are you going to tell
guy
these
was
kids?
a player of the year.
What are you going to tell these kids? No, you better not do this.
Yeah, exactly. And there have been some players, like I said, over the years that have left, and I thought, that one.
I'll give you one.
That one wasn't ready.
I'll give you one. Grant Jarrett.
Marcus Williams.
Yeah, that was no question. No, he said, what the hell?
We had a couple of years ago. Never even started at Arizona.
The kid, the guard.
Yeah,
he was with Trier's replacement until Trier came back.
Why can't I think of his name?
Yeah,
because he was here so long.
Someone's
right?
going to text me right now. Right. Well, that's part of the problem. They're not here long enough to know. We know them, but I know who exactly you're talking about. He's from Atlanta.
That is
played
true.
at Memphis.
Right. So I
God,
don't
this
know.
is sad. We're just getting old.
We are.
Welcome to on the wall. I don't know what
but
it
the
is.
Schooler situation was really kind of the one that really opened my eyes in terms of what these guys are going through. Because, the conference is throwing around, well, we may play in the spring. Well, are you taking into consideration what this is going to mean to your players?
Yeah.
And if you're going to make that decision without having a discussion with the NFL about what they're going to do, are they going to delay the draft, which they have so far said they will not? Are they going to delay the combines, which is they've so far said they're not? Then how is that going to play into a college football season in the spring?
Decisions. A lot left the next few weeks, and then months, of course.
Well, we're getting close to the time that I think we're going to know. They're going to have to make a decision one way or another. Everybody says it's by about the end of July. So
what's that saying?
We're a few weeks away, and
what's that saying? Get off the pot.
Yeah.
Before that,
something or get off the pot.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Do
so
something
here we are.
or get off the pot.
Here we are.
We're there, and I think that we're going to be, the decisions are going to be made, and at least whether it's good or bad, there'll be some certainty to it. I still think we're headed to no non-conference games in college football if they even play college football.
Something we can agree on. I agree with you. Here we go. A good show today, Jay.
Another good one.
We're going to have Scott Thompson tomorrow.
One of Lute Olson's first assistants at Arizona.
Thanks, everybody.
KVOI Cortero, AM 1030, the voice of Tucson. Trusted local news and talk. A Bustos media station.